My name
Hi,
is Karen Davis,
and I'm Alex Mill.
and I'm here with Alex Mill. And Dermot has asked us to come and share.
The best number one strategy that we have for creating clients.
That's right. That's right. And so most of my clients come to me through referral. I've been coaching for 17 years, and a lot of my former clients and people who know me refer people to me. And so the first thing that I do is I have a 30-minute conversation. And the same is true if they come to my website. There's an opportunity for someone to sign up for a 30-minute conversation with me. And the reason that I do that is because I just want to have an informal conversation with another person and get to know them, ask them questions, allow them to ask me questions, and just in a really relaxed setting.
I'm just curious, what kinds of questions do you typically ask them on the introductory, getting to know them kind of call?
Yeah, so I ask them, typically, I'll ask what brings them to be curious about coaching. What is their experience with coaching? Have they ever worked with a coach before? If yes, then I typically will probe a little bit more. What was that experience like? How did they benefit? Was there anything that didn't work for them in the coaching that they were doing? I think those are really important questions to find out. And then I typically will find out more about them. Who are they? What has their journey been and up until this point
Uh-huh.
in time? And I just find that connection with them to be really important and just very, really relaxing. And so, toward the end of the conversation, that's when I ask them if they're interested in a professional coaching session that would be my gift to them. So, it's complimentary. And they always say yes.
Uh-huh.
And when they say yes, then I say, okay. So, coaching, there's many things that are involved in coaching. And of course, there's the investment itself, and then there's also the investment of time, energy, and then the action that you take between sessions. And so at that point, I say to them, are you willing to put in some effort in order to prepare for the coaching session? And they'll typically say yes. And that's when I introduce our book, How to Get the Most Out of Coaching. So whether they've worked with a coach before or they have never worked with a coach, this book is really important in educating them on how they can get the most out of the experience. And I want them to get the most out of the very first experience with me, because I know that if they do, I can create a lot of impact with them. And if I can do that, then the odds of them continuing to work with me are very, very high. And so for me as a veteran coach, I typically find that I do that professional coaching session with them, and then we have a conversation about what it would be like to work together. For the coaches that I work with who are more novice, it typically might take maybe 2 experiences, maybe even 3 experiences before you can really create that impact for them.
And the book is, you've alluded to it, that it's going to take attention and energy, but it also shows to you whether they're actually willing to put in the time, energy into coaching by reading the book first. So
Yes.
it's the first little step that they take to show you that they can take some action,
Yeah.
which is going to be very much required in coaching.
It's like what your first coach, Jacob Sokol, had said to Alex. He said, I want to create an obstacle course for the potential client so that they have to go through some loops in order to get that complimentary session. And so the book is, and then I say, okay, so the book is 146 pages.
Mhm.
Oh, and by the way, Alex and I wrote this book. So we're not trying to get out there and promote it,
Uh-huh.
although,
You were doing a good job of it.
yeah, this is true. But we really, really believe in
Mhm.
this book.
Yeah.
And I really believe in getting this book into the hands of potential clients as soon as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the next thing I do is I say, okay, so it's 146 pages. How long will it take you to read 146 pages? And they will typically say, oh, a week, 2 weeks. And I say, great. Open up your calendar and let's go ahead and get that scheduled.
Mhm.
And so right then and there, they're on my calendar, and they will always stay on my calendar throughout this entire process.
Right. You don't leave a call without them getting onto your calendar and then putting
Correct.
the session or the conversation you're having on their calendar.
That's right. That's right. And so then there's another little zinger here. I say, oh, and by the way, I have 10 prompt questions
Mm.
that will really help you comprehend the book, and it'll check your comprehension of the book. Are you willing to go through each of those 10 questions, answer those, and send those back to me at least a day before the coaching session? And again, they will typically say yes. I don't think I've ever had anyone say no
Yeah. Well,
to
it also helps them
anything.
get right. The 10 questions are one of they come from each of the chapters of the book. So as they're going along, they they answer it as they go. So it
Yep,
helps them deepen their understanding of the material itself
that's right.
and shows to you and to them where their potential pitfalls or opportunities or challenges may be.
Yes,
So
yes, yes. It really informs the coaching, who that person is, and
mhm.
how you can help them the most during the entire coaching relationship.
So it's a really beautiful process of setting them up for success from the
Yeah.
very beginning, being really clear. And we talk a little bit about that, actually quite a bit about the agreements
Mhm.
and the whole book was designed specifically to get people not only on the same page but fortified
That's right.
and in the know. It's almost like everything you always want to know about coaching, but we're afraid to ask.
It's
In
true.
a way, right?
Yeah.
And so they get the inside scoop about how all this works, which can be really intimidating to people
Yeah.
who are not experienced with this. So it's a good icebreaker as well for anybody who is new to the whole process.
I agree. I agree. And so then uh, the next thing is I also have 5 questions that I send.
Mm.
And so now I've enrolled them into reading the book. I've enrolled them into answering the 10 questions and sending those back to me. And now I say, now, in order for you to prepare for the coaching session, I have 5 questions for you to contemplate and to respond back to and to send to me again before our coaching session. So I'm really building up that coaching
Hmm.
session.
Yeah.
And 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 so I ask them and say, okay, so there's 5 more questions. Are you willing to send those back to me as well? And again, now they just keep saying yes, yes. And this is just the third yes. They're already in.
Hmm.
They're in deep at this point. Really deep.
Right.
Okay.
Which child do I have to sign over to you?
Exactly. Exactly. Your third child. Okay. So, okay. Now we have all their commitments. We have them on the calendar. And the last thing that's really important is now, during this coaching session, it's a professional coaching session.
And you call it that.
Yes,
Okay.
and you call it that. And what I want you to think about when you're answering these 5 questions is, what is it that you can bring into the session that will give you the absolute highest value when you
Mhm.
walk away? And so be thinking about that. And we're only going to coach. We are not going to talk about what it would be like to work together. If you want to talk about that, then you can bring that up at the end of the coaching session, and we'll set up some more time to talk about that. And so now I'm setting the stage. They're very clear as to what they need to do. And sometimes this 30-minute conversation might take 45 minutes, especially if I jump in and kind of coach them a little bit during that 30-minute session. So I always block off 30 to 45 minutes, even though it's a 30-minute session. And at the 30-minute mark, I'll ask them, do you have another 15? I think this might take a little bit more time.
That's good.
And so then now we're in the professional coaching session.
And how long is that? Is that
90 minutes.
That's 90 minutes.
90 minutes for me. Again, with more novice coaches, I recommend 2 hours. I started out with 2 hours. It sometimes takes us a little bit longer as we're becoming better and better, more masterful at coaching, to really get in there and create that impact.
Good.
So okay, now
it's a 2-hour session.
Yep.
You've set the stage for them, letting them know that we're only going to be coaching. If you wanted to inquire about what it would be like to work together, we're not going to cover that on this call.
Yep.
If that's something that you're interested in, you bring it in at the end, and then we can set up another time to talk about it. So there's potentially 3 calls here happening. And so on this call, you're going to coach them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So what that does, 2 things. One is, for the coach, you are completely unattached during that coaching session. You are just doing your absolute best coaching.
Yeah.
And that is so important, especially as a more novice coach. I remember kind of bringing in some of that attachment.
Right.
And you don't want to be there.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't want to have to figure out how you're going to add that little bit about, by the way, do you want to work with me? By the way, here's what it would be like to.
Yeah, my clients pay me from this and this. And
Right.
you don't want to.
Because people could be in a really opened, expansive place, and then.
Yes.
Anyway,
yes. Exactly.
Go ahead.
Great point.
Yep.
Really great point. You want to keep them in that expansive place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now they come into that professional. So it's a couple weeks later. Ideally, it would be like a week and a half later. And you've reviewed all their questions. Missed a step. Right after the conversation, that initial conversation,
30-minute.
right after, I have like a form letter that I send, and it talks about when their coaching session is, whether it's on Zoom, whether it's in person, and or it could even be by phone, whatever their preference is. I found that out in the conversation. And then it includes the 10 prompt questions and the 5 questions to prepare them.
Okay.
And they have all the instructions: when to show up, how to be on time, to acknowledge this email,
good.
All those important things.
Yeah. It's more along the lines of like setting them up for success, giving them all the information. It's sort of like a little roadmap for them to follow.
Yes.
So they always know what's happening next. They don't have to wonder about what's going on, what's going to happen.
That's right. Exactly. Okay, now we can fast forward to the professional coaching session. And in that session, at the very top of that session, I always will create 2 agreements with them. Now, I want them to know the purpose of the 2 agreements are very important. We'll talk about that in a minute. However, the reason I do the 2 agreements at the top of the coaching session is because I want them to know we're going to drop in to a coaching session in just a moment. And I want them to really feel that and feel what that feels like, that we're not just here chatting.
Right.
We're here in this experience, and we're going to go deep, and we're going to go deep fast. Right.
So get your seatbelts on.
Buckle up your seatbelt and tie your shoes and get ready to rock. Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly. So the 2 agreements that I always do, one is around confidentiality, which I think is very important. I also ask for mutual confidentiality. That way, if I share anything personal, that it's kept in confidence, and that we have a mutual understanding that we're creating a sacred space for this conversation. And the other one is about really being open and willing to tell on yourself, that anytime during the coaching session, if this little chatterbox up here is saying something that's contrary to what we're talking about, that be willing to bring that in,
Right.
so that we can look at it. And what that does is it helps them. We're giving them permission to go deeper.
Right.
And when we give them permission to go deeper and be vulnerable, be open, then what happens is we're able to create more impact for them. And when you create more impact, you're creating a client, essentially.
Yeah. And it's also for you too. It's like it's like the confidentiality. It's not just I'm going to be confidential about what you share, but you're going to be confidential about what I say. But in this next agreement about saying whatever is there, it's giving permission to them to be bold and you to be bold, like, with your high flame, and then also to be vulnerable, right? So telling yourself whatever's going on, and you have the ability to say the same thing too, like, I'm not sure where we're going, or whatever it would be arising for you. So it sets the stage also for a lot of what we want people to be bringing into the coaching, feeling like that this is their opportunity. Don't let anything come between them and getting the most out of it. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yes. I skipped something. So at the beginning of the professional coaching session, if there was anything that came up in the 10 questions or anything that came up in the 5 questions, I always will address it at the top. So that way they know I've read their homework, essentially.
Great.
And then oftentimes those answers to those questions, you can tell who's really serious about coaching and who is going to be your coaching client from the answers to those questions. Very, very important. And it's important that you spend time with them beforehand, a day before the session, so that you can really sleep on it and you know what you're coming into.
That's such a great point.
What's happening.
This is a little bit about the whole process, is that they're revealing to you who they are, how they show up. It's a little bit of the how you do anything is how you do everything sort of thing. So every little bit about the conversation you have initially, to how they answer their questions, to whether they're reading the book, to all of these things give you, like you said, a really good clue about who they are and what's it going to be like, and whether they're a big hell yes to, like, I really want to work with somebody who answers questions like this or goes as deeply as that. So it's like a little interview process, actually, this whole thing. And so just good.
It's good. Yeah, there's a question in the 10 prompt questions. It's question number 7, and we talk about it in the book. Can you make coaching your number one priority in life? And a lot of people will answer that question very honestly for them, but oftentimes they miss the point in the book, which is, if you can make coaching your number one priority, really what you're saying is, I'm number one priority.
That's right.
And if I can make myself number one priority, then everything else, everyone else, including my kids, my spouse, my family, will all benefit by you making yourself the number one priority.
That's right. Am I willing to make myself the number one priority? Am I willing to show up for myself? Time and time again. It's good.
And so when a potential client answers that question yes, you've got someone who really gets it and they really understood what we were talking about in the book. And bless their heart if they go, my family is, or no, my health is, and I get that. If they say health, totally get that. And so it's all a process, right? That you don't come in with all the characteristics of coachability right from the start.
We're not looking for perfect people.
We're not looking for perfection.
So there's a middle way, right? So they're going to reveal to you where they are currently, not what's possible for them overall. So I don't want anybody to misread what I was getting at, or me.
Yeah. No, we're not looking for perfection by any stretch of the imagination.
It's a conversation you can have with them about it.
Yeah.
It's like, so I get it that this, and this, and so it's just another opportunity to coach them.
Yes. 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 So then now we're at the end of the professional coaching session. And as the coach, you know whether or not you have created impact for them, especially at the end when you ask them, what have you discovered or what were your insights? And as a result
That's
of
good.
those, what's an action you might take? And so you know there at the end of the session.
And you literally ask them that. That's
Yes.
something that you bring up. Okay, I just want to
Always.
make sure. Okay.
Always.
How much
Yes.
time do you, just curious, how much time do you leave for what did you notice? What insights have you had, and what's one action?
Typically about 15.
15
Yeah,
minutes?
about
Okay.
15, 20 minutes toward
Okay.
the end.
So you factor that
When
in.
there's kind of this natural kind of winding down, that's when I jump in there with those questions.
Okay.
And then typically at the end, because I've educated them on what's going to happen and what they need to do, because I also brought it up again at the beginning of this professional coaching session. Now and I say, this is our professional coaching session. We're only going to coach. If you'd like to talk about what it would be like to work together, please bring that up at the end. And so now they know what to do. So often people come in to coaching, even if they've worked with another coach, they don't know what the steps are.
Like, are you going to
ask
her?
Right.
Are you going to propose?
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me
I'm going to get down on one knee and propose.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's like this whole process has been one of telling them exactly what's going to happen
step by
and
step.
when. And so a lot of times coaches actually miss a lot of those kinds of things. They're like, why aren't my clients, or why aren't people I'm talking to asking me about coaching?
Yeah.
And well, maybe one, they don't know you're a coach, or they don't know what this all is all about. Maybe you're just trying to help them, right? But you say it's a professional coaching session. It's my gift to you. And
distinguishing between social and professional is so important. So important. So we get to the end. They typically will ask again, okay, can we set up some more time? What's next? And so I say, great, yes, pull out your calendar. Let's get some more time on the calendar. And that is typically an hour conversation. And it is typically the next week. If I can get them on my calendar, because of the half-life of enthusiasm, I want them to stay excited about this opportunity. And so I have them pull up the calendar, and we're talking then the next week about what it is to work together.
So within a week, right?
Yes,
so you don't
within
let too
a week.
much time go by. Okay,
that's right.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
So now, if that's my process, if you're more of a novice and you think to yourself, well, and even me too, like if I didn't feel like I made impact for them, or we didn't go as deep as I thought possible, and I really want to work with them, then I would say, if they said, okay, how do we talk about it? I might say, I just don't feel like we're there yet. I think there's more here to uncover. Then you can set up another session with them. Okay. Now, let's say you're a novice. Let's say that you've done 2 sessions with them, and now you've made impact with them. There's one thing that you can do between that session and when you talk about what it would be like to work together, and that is to write them a reflection of the 2 coaching sessions that you did. And what that is that's you saying to them, here's what we discussed, here's what we talked about, here are the possibilities that I see for you, here are some possibilities that you mentioned. And when they get that nice email of a reflection, or it could be on video, it could be any form that you want, they read it and they go, wow, this person gets me. And if they're talking with other coaches, the other coaches aren't doing this. And
they're not.
They're not doing this. And they get that. And in all my years, have I written a reflection and the client hasn't worked with me? I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
yeah,
So
it's
that's a testament to how
like
powerful this is.
it
So,
is. It takes a lot of time, and my coaches do it too.
mhm.
And the coaches that I work with, I've taught this process, and that if it takes a while to put it together, but if you really want to work with this individual,
Mhm.
it's what makes a huge difference.
You know,
Huge.
it's so cool because it shows the person, one, that you listen to them deeply, that
Yes.
you understood where they are and what they're going through, but it's also going back into their world too, because so often as coaches we're always so focused. I'll just speak for myself. We get like, what was my impression? Was I a stellar superstar? And it's like never losing sight of the fact that it's all about the coaching client, right? So you want to stay
Yeah.
in their world. This is how
Mhm.
Steve Chandler would talk
Yeah.
about it, right? So the reflection is a beautiful summary of them. It's like a snapshot of their highs, lows, their challenges, their potential, their hope that they may have
Yep.
in the work, where you see the work going and what's possible for them. So it leaves them in what Steve also says, make sure they feel good, right? So you
Yeah.
always want to make them feel good at the end of an email or whatever communication you're sharing
Yep.
with them. So this email has that going for it,
Yeah. Big
times
time.
10. Yeah, because
Big time.
yeah, cool.
Yeah. And then, so that's the reflection. Is something that I don't do all the time.
Mm,
I will do it every so often when I'm just so clear, like this
right,
person is such a great fit.
right,
Yeah,
right.
and I really see, because it does take it. You have to really sit down and really think through everything. It does take
Yeah,
time.
yeah. This isn't a cookie cutter
No,
process. This is
not
like you're
no. When it
filtering
drops in,
everything
yep,
through. All of these steps are because at any point it could have been during your first 30-minute conversation. You're like, oh no,
yeah, that's right.
it wouldn't work. There's no chemistry.
Yeah,
Uh, right?
yeah,
They were drinking coffee and falling off the bus as they were on the call.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whatever. I mean,
Yeah, this is not a cookie cutter process
right.
by any
You're
stretch of the
always
imagination. I mean, there was one situation recently where my intuition guided me not to put this person on my calendar.
mm.
And I was like, okay. Okay.
That
And I'm
question's not
working
going to
with
come
that
up.
person. I'm working with that person right now. But each time it was like, no, no, this person, they've been a CEO. They know what they're doing. They are being their word. They said they'd get back to me. I'm going to trust that. So this is by no stretch of the imagination a cookie cut. Thank you for saying that.
Sure, sure.
Is not a cookie
Right,
cutter
right, right,
process.
right.
Okay, so now we're on to the
Oh, it's
next,
so
the
exciting.
hour
Where's it gonna?
conversation. Yes, now
Now
we're
they're
in the
sending you a
hour.
check. When are they
Yeah,
sending me a
yeah,
check?
yeah. So now we're into the final conversation, and Steve Chandler always says, "Bring them back into possibility." Right. So
That's right.
Steve Chandler is my coach. He's worked with Alex. We love Steve Chandler, and we follow Steve Chandler. He's amazing. So he's the godfather of coaching, in fact.
He sure is.
Yes. So now we're in the hour conversation. And by the way, if they don't show up on time any step of the way, you don't necessarily need to bring it in until you start working with them. And then you're going to create really powerful agreements around
Right,
showing
a
up.
lot of things,
Yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
like around the coachability and the
Yeah.
agreements and things like that. So
Yeah.
only when they're your client.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're watching for that
Yeah,
every step of the
you know
way.
they're going to bring all that in.
Yeah. And if it's 1 or 2 minutes, you're noticing those things because that's not going to happen during the coaching engagement. Anyway, okay. So now we're in the 1 hour and we're talking about what it is to work together. And so they typically have had some homework that they were doing after that initial coaching session. And so I will start there. I'll start and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what else is going on, what else has occurred. I'll bring them back into the coaching experience for about the first 35 minutes or so of that conversation.
Good.
And then we'll talk about what it is to work together. And they may have already asked me up front, could have been the 30-minute conversation, it could have been at the end of the 2-hour coaching session, what's the investment for this?
Mm-hmm.
And I will typically say, my clients pay me between this and this, depending upon the program that is best for them. And so now we're into this 1-hour conversation, and I will have thought through what program is my highest recommendation for them. And so I will come in and share, I think this program here, based upon what you've said that you want, is going to be the best one for you. And this is what it includes. And then I will typically do this over Zoom or do it in person. And I'm watching their body language the whole time. or just the stone face, something's going on there. With no reaction. You're that
deer in headlights or sticker shock.
How's
Right.
your stomach feeling? So if I get kind of the hit that, okay, yeah, they're just like, I will always go to, or we could do something like this, which is much smaller and something that's more palatable for them and something that gives them an idea of what it is to work together. And so for me, that could be like my 2-day accelerator that includes 3 sessions pre, 2 sessions post. They can fly into Colorado, work here in my studio with me for a couple of days, and then not all the time, but most of the time, my clients will sign on for a bigger program at that point. So always have that smaller program available to them if you want to work with them, because there's.
But you would only bring it up. So if you really, really want to work with this person and you think that this is really the best program for them, whatever scope that is, start with that.
That's right.
Yeah, you don't. Like I think you've said to me before, it's like, okay, well, don't bring in the. By the way, I have. You could do the one session. I remember Steve and I were talking one time. He's like, you don't want to give them a whole menu full of things because then they walk away and I have to think about it and I just don't know which is best and all that. I think you put it. I'm the one who is listening to them. I know what they're going through. I know what they. This is my best recommendation.
My highest.
Highest. There you go.
My highest recommendation. Yeah.
And then you
based
wait,
upon what they want to.
Yeah. You wait for them to say whatever it is that they say.
Yeah.
Following that.
Yeah. Steve calls it shock and relief. And so be sure you have a relief for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there's also this.
Yeah. And so that is how I create clients. And they will typically, because I've taken them through the process, because I've educated them every step of the way through the process, they will either say, I want some time to think about this, or, okay, great, let's do that.
So they're going to tell you about how you're going to figure it out, like what the next step is.
Yes.
They're going to send you a check, or they're going to.
Yes, all that gets figured out right there.
Okay.
If they say, I need to think about this, I say, great, let's set up some time on our calendar. And how long will that take? A week. Yeah. And then I go 30 minutes. So now, see, I'm going down in time. So 30 minutes. And in 30 minutes, they should be able, I might bring them back into the coaching a little bit, but, they know that they're there for a yes or a no.
Got it. So you're setting up another call to talk to them about what.
Yeah, if they needed time to think. Yeah,
they're not going to send you an email saying yes, I want to work with you, and then
no,
okay.
I don't leave any. I don't want to be waiting on an email.
Yeah. You said that at the very beginning was that every you don't leave a call without setting up another call.
Yeah.
So it's every time it's a commitment that they're going to take action and they're going to show up.
That's right.
You're not going to wait for, hey, did you think about it or did you not think about it? Right?
Yeah, you don't want to get lost in email with anything. So that's the process. Trying to think if I left any of the steps
out.
Then
they begin working with you once you receive payment?
And then, yes. So, by that time we figured out, and I've figured, what's one thing Steve always said to me is always be ready. Always be ready. So by always be ready, I know what day, what time their coaching session will be, so that I can even tell them, look, I have Wednesdays open at 2:30. And so I can discuss that. Does that work for you? If not, this is one other time I have available. I typically don't have much available on my schedule.
Right.
These
So
days,
you'll plot all that
yeah,
out
yeah.
right there and then. Okay.
And so then I send them a calendar with all their dates. They typically sign on for a year-long program. And yep.
And it just keeps showing up.
And yep, but we know when the money's coming to the bank account. I have a non-legalese contract that I send to them, meaning there's not a lot of legalese. There's nothing. It's very basic.
It's very basic.
Yeah.
So.
Nothing that needs to be sent off to an attorney. And then we start the first session. And in the first session is when I do the agreements, which we can create another video about.
Right. Yeah. You have an entire session that you verbally go over the agreements with them. So you don't.
That's another whole video.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, this whole. I've really enjoyed this because I get to see like the step by step, like you're holding their hand through. You know,
that's right.
It's
all about education.
Yeah, education and letting them know that you're with them every step of the way. I kind of picture you going into a theater and there's a person who sells you the ticket. They tell you to go over to the person who's going to rip. Well, I don't think they rip them; they scan them now. But then you can go get your refreshments. They'll tell you where the actual theater is. You go in to see your film or performance or whatever it is you're going to go see. So it's like a hand holding all along the way.
That's right.
And then once they're your client, that's when you. Welcome. Okay, well, that was fun.
That was really fun. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Dermot, for giving us this opportunity.
Hope it's helpful.
To share. Yeah, we really hope it's helpful. Reach out if you have any questions. What else?
Yeah, any questions or
Karen
if you want
KarenDavisCoaching.com.
If you want any of the questions too, right?
So I'll send Dermot the 10 prompt questions.
There we go. Get them all hooked up.
Yep.
Okay. Lots of love.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye now.
Lots of love. Bye. Heart.
Excellent.